Welcome to the Springs in the Desert podcast. We're those friends that you can take with you wherever you are on the path of infertility. Hey there, Springs in the Desert listeners. I am Jillian, your podcast host, and I am joined today by Katie Summers. So grateful to be here with you today. How are you, Katie?
I'm great. Trying to stay warm over here.
Yes, I hear ya. I really shouldn't complain. North Dakota's winter has been fairly mild. We have had cold weather, but not as much snow as we did last year. I don't have much to to complain about, but I can understand staying warm. I can relate to that.
That's doing very for you.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Listeners, today, Katie and we're going to talk all about dating your spouse, which I think is just a really fun topic to talk about. And infertility is definitely a cross, and it can be challenging to carry that if you and your spouse aren't able to connect in other ways to build up and to support that cross, to strengthen your marriage, to continue carrying that, the cross of infertility and any other crosses that you might be carrying. So I'm excited to talk about dating your spouse. And Katie, I didn't ask you this beforehand, but I am just wondering, do you remember the last date that you and your husband went on?
Well, I know different people have different definitions of what constitutes a date. If we go get coffee, I call that a date. So
yes, heck yes.
Probably the last time we did go on a date was to go get coffee. We like to go to daily mass on Saturday mornings and then get coffee. So,
oh, I love that. And Katie, you bring up a really great point. Dates don't have to be extravagant, right? I think that simply setting aside a time to be with each other, and that could be as simple as going on a walk or getting coffee or just chatting at home. It doesn't have to be extravagant. It's just this one-on-one time to really reconnect. But it could be as extravagant as a planned maybe night out at getting dinner or drinks. Maybe you have friends with for a double date or something like that. But I think it's a good point that I think if your definition of date, I'm sensing, as you said, that in my own heart, that sometimes it's okay to widen that definition of date because I can remember certainly, especially maybe a few years ago when we were really in the thick of losses, that it felt like we were doing all of the diet things and all the supplement things and all that we're just doing as much as we humanly could. Yeah. And so it also felt like we had to do that to strengthen our marriage. You know, a date wasn't a date unless it was planned and big and we went out and made a whole ordeal of it. And so I think it's helpful to take a step back and broaden what are the sort of gaps of time that God is giving us that we could take advantage of and go on a date. And what does that look like? It could be simple. It could be planned. It could be a surprise. It could be adventurous. It could be anything, right? And so I really like that. And so I encourage listeners to maybe just think about your definition of date and see if it could be broadened to encapsulate other times that you have with your spouse.
Don't put pressure on yourself. It can be, it should just be fun and lighthearted. There's enough stress. You don't need planning big elaborate dates every single time to be on your stress radar.
Yes, that's so helpful. And I think today's topic, we're going to talk today, listeners, about going on a dream date. And this date, I would say, would fall in more of the planned, a little bit more of the, not necessarily elaborate. I think it could still be going out for coffee, and it doesn't have to be super, detailed and having a lot of things, but it is an idea for a date that you would set aside quite a bit of time so that you and your spouse can talk through a lot of areas of your marriage and goals that you have and what the Lord is asking of you in this new year or in whatever season you are in. So, Katie, have you ever gone on a dream date?
I have not, but as soon as I heard about the idea, I was like, I think I need to. It's not like it naturally would fall at the beginning of the year as a time for doing that, but it could be any time you're looking ahead. And I think for me in the early part of the year, I'm naturally doing that anyway, but I love the idea of having this time to come together and talk about it intentionally instead of having all those like random anxieties floating around in my head, to be able to talk with them constructively with my husband. That sounds like a great idea.
Yes. And I think one of the reasons that I like the title Dream Date is that it just really opens up the conversation to any possibilities, right? That you can just talk about all your dreams. What is it that you hope for your life? And sometimes in a season of infertility or loss, dreams feel inaccessible, or they feel like I can't even talk about them. I got to shelf them for now because I'm in the present, and the present is difficult and I can't even look to tomorrow right now. But this just allows as an encouragement to just dream, to do that, to just say, these are all the things that I hope for my life and our life together and our aspirations. And I think it is true what you said, Katie, that the beginning of the year would be a great time to do this, but any time that you are planning, and I think maybe you have a financial advisor and you meet with them maybe twice a year. I think before that you could do this and dream about what you want to do, or maybe have different annual dates, like an anniversary would be a great time to maybe do this beforehand in the next year of your marriage, or before birthdays, or any kind of special date. I think would be a fun time to go on a dream date.
For sure. Don't limit it to the beginning of the year.
Yes. So listeners, before we dive into our example of a dream date, this can have so many different forms. It can look so many different ways. We're just going to give you one example of what a dream date could look like and help guide you through a conversation with your spouse if you haven't done this before. But this could be as simple as in your home and setting aside some time and maybe having some coffee or making some supper together and going over this. It could be a progressive date where you start maybe going out for coffee and then you get appetizers somewhere and dinner somewhere else, and maybe drinks and desserts somewhere else. And it could also be going somewhere entirely different. Maybe you plan a trip and part of your trip is setting aside an afternoon to go on a dream date. It can look however you and your spouse feel loved and filled up. So I encourage you, first of all, to just talk about that with your spouse. When should we do this? When would it be fitting for us to do this? And to try to set yourself up to do this annually. I think it's really great to be able to, just like any goals, Katie, to be able to set a goal and then revisit it throughout the year and then see where you fell when the year comes around and what goals you could set for the next year. I always really like looking back and seeing sort of the steps that I took to reach goals, and maybe a goal totally changed because maybe I got a new job or we moved or something happened that the goals changed. And it's just beautiful, I think, to look back at that and see what God was doing in your life in that past year. So definitely. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think sometimes looking back too is a really good way to foster gratitude and help encourage you and hope for the future, because that's why it's so good to have a specific time to look back, because sometimes we don't remember unless we take that time to sit down and intentionally remember all the good things.
Yes, that's so true. And I needed to hear that because, right, if we're not making time to look back, to recall, to remember, then we might not. It might not happen. And it's that task that gets put to tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And so to just set some side a time with your spouse to be able to look back and see what God has done and all of the amazing things that have happened in your marriage in the last year. So I think start there, discuss a time. It could be the beginning of the year, like I said, or I think an anniversary would also be a really great time. And then how you want to do it. And that could change year to year too. But I think it's helpful to plan a little bit ahead for this one. How do you want to go somewhere? Do you want to stay in? Do you want to go somewhere locally or far away? How do you want to do that? And just plan it out a little bit so that none of those details feel stressful the day of, and it just gives you an opportunity to chat. At least for me, I like to have things planned out. How about you, Katie?
Yes, I'm the same.
Yes.
But I think it would make a lot of sense, especially in this circumstance, so that your brain power on that day can be on the other logistics and not the logistics of the date.
That's right. Yes. So the topic of the night is all the dreams that you have for your marriage and all the different ways that maybe you want to grow in that year. And so we have an example that I'm going to share by Peter and Stephanie Weinert. I'm going to link several different links in the show notes to Stephanie's Instagram and her website. She has really a lot of beautiful resources for couples and marriages and motherhood that I think are really beautiful. As I found Stephanie after I had losses. She lost her youngest. Her child was born with Down syndrome and he passed away at 18 months. And I think a lot of her resources really just equip us to live out femininity in the way that God is asking us to. And we talk about spiritual motherhood sometimes here on the podcast. And that can be a hard term and a little bit complicated to flesh out. But I think that Stephanie does a really beautiful job at walking alongside families of different sizes. And so I would encourage you to check her out. But one of her specific resources that we will link is a PDF to a dream date format, a blank kind of template on how to do a dream date. And the way that they do it is they separate their goals into 7 different categories that begin with the letter F. F for faith, family, finances, fitness, food, fun, and the future. And so we are just going to dive a little bit into this and maybe give you some ideas about goals and maybe just think a little bit outside of the box and encourage you to dream. So, Katie, the first, which I think is really great, the first thing that the Weinerts have on their dream date is faith, which I think is appropriately placed first and foremost. And I think something that's good at a dream date is to take stock on what's going well in that category, what's working well for your family. Maybe there's timing of things or you have systems in place. And then how do you want to grow? And what would that look like? And so in the matters of faith, Katie, what might be an area that someone would want to maybe discuss or grow in or see if it's working well for them?
Sure. I think everybody's prayer life looks differently, but I think there are a couple ways you might want to go about it. So maybe you want to talk about the ways that you have or haven't been praying together as a couple over the past years. Are these routines going to work for us in this new year? Are our schedules changing? Does this still make sense? And then maybe you've been inspired about new things you want to incorporate personally, and you can share those with your husband and say, I'm really excited about reading this book of scripture this year, or I want to start praying Liturgy of the Hours. Do you want to join me? And so you can both look at what you've been doing and see if it's still going to fit this new season, or add things, or say, that wasn't as fruitful as I thought. I feel called to, maybe you want to sign up for an adoration hour together, or there's so many options here.
Yeah. And Katie, I want to hone in onto something you were saying, that the way that the Weinerts have this set up, which I think is a really great way, is they have the husband's kind of reflections, the wife's reflections, and then as a family, what is that looking like? And so I think that gives an opportunity, as you said, okay, I really was hoping to read this book, maybe a gospel, and it didn't go so well. And so this is how I'm going to do that. But as a family, I would like to maybe pray night prayer with my spouse this year. And so yes, we have great personal relationships with God and we have to cultivate that and make sure that we have our own prayer life, but together as a couple and our family, what does that look like? And so I appreciated that. I had forgotten to say that it's important that we have our own goals and then we bring them together as a family.
Yeah. And I think it's really good too to have this time to ask your spouse their perspective on how things are going for even you personally, because sometimes his perspective is going to be enlightening for you to just get his feedback on how he's.
Yes, that's really lovely. I don't think I probably ask my husband often enough, what are ways that I could improve this? Do you notice anything that's preventing me or an obstacle that is preventing me from being able to accomplish this goal? And you're right, there are so many, I think, in faith particularly, but all of these topics, there's a million ideas that you could pursue. But I think, is this working for our schedule? My husband's schedule changes from nights to days a lot. And so
Mhm.
is the mass time we're attending, is that still working for us as a family? Do we need to switch our schedule to change that at a different time? Or like you said, is it the time of day that we're praying or the way that we're praying, is that still fruitful and nourishing? And I think, yeah, and thinking outside of the box too, that it doesn't have to be, although it's beautiful, you don't have to set a lofty goal to read the Bible in a year, although you can, because there's some really beautiful resources available to do that. But maybe
Yeah.
you just want to learn about a saint. And so this year, you're just going to, maybe you listen to our Word and Saint of the Year podcast and you pick your own saint, and you just, maybe your goal is to read a book about them this year and to just get to know a new saint or get to know more about the saint that you chose. But maybe you want to read some of the documents of the church. And so you just have a goal to read a couple of them. And I think there can be a lot of really interesting goals that can be set here. But to, I think, importantly in faith, to take stock of how things are going. And I really love your idea, Katie, to ask your spouse, how do you think it's going for us and for me? Love that.
Yeah.
The next F is family. And I think that this particular area could be one that might be challenging to talk through because our family size and structure might not look exactly the way that we want them to, especially in this community. And so I think one, just know that it's okay. It's okay to have a lot of feelings around this, to struggle through this. And I think what this allows you to do is maybe pray together, to support each other in that,
Mhm.
to talk about, maybe it's been a little while since you've been able to share some of those feelings about this season, and to just say, how are we doing? And that's actually their first question under family is, how are we doing? And I think that's so
Mhm.
appropriate. How is our family? How does that look like? And
Mhm.
again, what's going well? Maybe how do we want to, maybe we do have some great doctors on our team that are working, or maybe we want to look elsewhere. There's a lot of different areas, but I think just know that could be a little bit of a challenging topic, and that's okay. But it's still good to be with each other in that and to talk through that. Do you have any thoughts, Katie, about family goals?
Well, the first thing that came to mind was the recent episode with Edward. He was
Mm.
talking a little bit about checking in with your spouse about how you're feeling about those things. And so I think some of his suggestions might fit really well to have that conversation with your spouse during your dream date. And then the other thought was that I feel like we could also use this category as an invitation to look at the way we are interacting with our spouse, or like, how is our relationship? What kinds of things do we want to do to strengthen our marriage? And yeah, there's going to be a lot of probably feelings around the family and the children aspect for people in our community, as you said. But I think we can expand this category and
Yes.
try to end it on a happy, grateful note too.
Yes.
We're feeling up for that.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I think sometimes, at least for me, and maybe some in the community would resonate with this, I think just knowing what you're walking into and what to expect in that
Yes.
conversation can be a world of difference. And to know that it's good to talk about it and it's good to share how you're feeling, and then say, I'm expanding this topic to include
Yes.
let's say our date life. We're talking about
Mhm.
dream dates and we want to go on dates more regularly. And so that's what our family is going to do. We're going to go on dates, or maybe you have things that you like to do, traveling, or you have friends that you like
Mhm.
to see and you want to see them once a month or twice a month, or just really expanding that to what it looks like to build up your family and support your family. And yeah,
I love all of that.
yeah. Okay, the next topic is finances, which
Mm.
finances can be challenging to talk about sometimes.
Yes.
I just wanted to encourage the community, though, to really enter into it, and that God's got you. And there is, especially, we hear it definitely from this community, between appointments, maybe you're considering adoption or you're in the adoption process, or there's, like I said, surgeries or a lot of medical things. Finances can be challenging when you are walking through a season of infertility or loss. However, I think, again, it's a good topic to talk about. And if this topic isn't maybe as difficult to walk through, then perhaps there's a lot of grace to set some good goals and to plan ahead for your future. One example is just one I'll share from my life. Last year in 2024, my husband and I wanted to become debt free.
Wow.
And so we said from January 1st to December 31st, we're going to pay off all of our debt besides our mortgage. And I think it was maybe like December 28th or 29th. I'd have to look again at the calendar, but we did. We paid off all of our debt last year. And
Praise
it was,
God.
yeah. And I do want to, I think my encouragement was that it gave my husband and I a goal to work on together that
Mhm.
wasn't fertility related. And
Yes.
that's it was so helpful, and not that we aren't focused on our fertility and and working through that as well, and our what our family looks like, but we had this outside goal, a big goal that allowed us to change our habits day to day and be in it together and support each other
Mhm.
together, that I think was really helpful. And it's not that it shut the door on conversations about our family, but it allowed a breath of fresh air to be working on
Mhm.
something different a little
Yeah.
bit that would also set us up for the future.
I think that's really cool because I think sometimes when we're walking this path of infertility, we feel like the shared domestic project, so to speak, is something that we're not getting to work on with our spouse in the way that we wanted to. And so I really love that. It was like a way that jointly you were building up your life together and your future. That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. It can be just depending. Every couple will be different, but I think finances could be a way to shift your eyes, your vision to a goal that's still helping your family move forward, but just has a little bit different tone and a little different a way that you would navigate that. The next two topics I'm going to join together because I think they often relate: fitness and food, right? Nutrition and health and all of that. And I think too, these two topics could be potentially challenging if you are on a certain diet or are feeling like you have to lose weight in order to accomplish certain goals. This can definitely be challenging. But again, I really encourage you to just allow yourself to dream. Just know that God is with you in it and that He has abundance for you in all of these categories. And for me, in these ways, I try to make them like, what could I do that's fun in these categories? So I'm not so focused on like a rigid schedule. And I think so fitness, my goal from a couple of years ago was to join a volleyball league. I love playing volleyball, and right, I want to be active. I want to make sure that I'm getting some activity in during my week, but I don't always love going to the gym early in the mornings or whenever I have to go. That doesn't feel fun to me.
Yeah.
So if I can incorporate activity into my daily life, I like to do that. And so that could be an example for fitness. And for food, I love to put on wine tastings. And so I'm not going to set a nutrition goal. I'm going to set a goal to have people over maybe a few times a year for a wine tasting event and that we enjoy good food together. And
Yeah.
so I think those are just a couple examples that come to my mind of ways to make it more fun and not feel so weighty perhaps on topics that are maybe difficult. But what do you think about those topics, Katie?
I love your suggestions. Those are really great. I was thinking that for me personally this year, I think that fitness is something that my husband and I want to be a goal together too. So for
Mm,
me, that's a way to make it fun. If I'm like, oh, well, we're taking our daily walk together, then it's not just, oh man, I got to go exercise. Oh, I get to chat with my husband for 45 minutes. Make it
yes.
fun.
Yes. And I think that's great too, because these, and really all of them, even this PDF, listeners, if you're looking at this PDF, you can make it into however you would like it to. And I really like how, as going back to the faith category, that they listed husband, wife, and then as a family. And I think you could do that in every category for fitness: husband, wife, together as a family. And what goals do you have, and how could you work on that together? Maybe my husband loves going to the gym. He's all about these two categories are his favorite categories to talk about, and some of my least favorite categories to talk about. If I want to be a little bit more active and he's going to the gym several times a week, I can just go with him. And
Yes.
maybe I could walk a little, or maybe I could just find some fun or easy going kind of activity that I could participate in while he's doing that. Or what sometimes works, I have to be in a good mood, but
Uh-huh.
sometimes he'll show me how to use a piece of equipment, and he can pass on his knowledge and his love for
Uh,
fitness to me. Sometimes I get frustrated, and so I have to just
fair.
know that and prepare for it. But I think this way it could be practically I want to go to the gym a few times a week, or I have this nutritional goal, I want to cut out sweets, or I want to have one sweet a week, or whatever that goal looks like. But it could also be a little bit more fun, and how can I live in community with not only my spouse but maybe those around me. Okay, the next two are fun. We'll break these up. Literally, the next one is fun. And so, some of the ideas that they have under here are vacations, adventures, ministry opportunities, or just miscellaneous goals that maybe don't fit somewhere else on this PDF of the dream date. And I think that this just allows you to dream big, and a catch-all for any other, I think, fun goals. And Katie, maybe from the past, or a goal that you maybe have now, or that you'd like to see how you could implement, what might be a fun goal that someone could consider?
Yeah, I guess there were like last year there were some more home projects that we wanted to get done.
Good idea.
Gotta paint that other room so I can get it set up for my office. And I got that done last year, and that was like really satisfying. So
Yeah.
I think it could be things like that, or it could be like a hike that you really want to go on. You're like, okay, we're just gonna say we're doing this when the weather's nice, or I don't know. Like you were saying earlier, maybe you have some friends that you want to commit to trying to see more regularly this year. What kind of schedule can you get in touch with them and make some plans? So, yeah,
Yes.
I love this
I,
category. Give me anything.
yes, me too. Me too. Because I think it's, again, it could be husband, wife, and then maybe there are some together as a family. I love the idea of house projects, right? Because it's our domestic church. Our home is where we are building towards sainthood together. And so to take care of that and to do projects that make it feel more beautiful or livable, and that you're enjoying coming home to, I love that idea. And friends, this is one idea. We have my husband and I have some college friends. We went to different colleges, but these friends went to the college I was at. We were able to really form a friendship, but towards the end of our time there. And so we've been trying to see them once a year or once every other year, but we live literally a whole nation away. They are usually on the very southern border, and we're at the very northern border. And so it can be
Oh
just a little bit
man.
challenging to see them. But if you are able to say, okay, this year we're gonna go see them. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna find a time and we're gonna go see them. That's a beautiful goal, to just reconnect maybe with those you haven't seen. Or maybe my husband, he's never really been out of the country. And so
Mhm.
he wants to explore the world. Okay, let's start small maybe, and because we've never done it before, and
Yay.
and for me, Canada is very close. A lot of North Dakotans go to Canada frequently for, there's a music camp there that a lot of students go to just across the border. And but I've never been there. And so maybe we could go there and find some place interesting there. And then maybe we could go to Europe or somewhere that there's a lot of English speakers, and then go into a
Mhm.
country that maybe we don't know the language so well, and learn a new language together, and just build up
Yeah.
to I think some fun dreams would be good.
I was just one more thought on that,
Yeah.
that like it's the Jubilee year in the church this year. So if
Yes.
you could make a pilgrimage, it could be small. I think your local cathedral counts, or make it a big trip, go to Rome. So that might be a cool thing to talk through.
Yes, maybe my husband and my brother actually they love history. And so maybe you plan to go to a historical location where they can teach you a little bit about it, so they can share their love for something, but you're also getting to go out and explore and try new foods and maybe interact with new people and see a new place. And so just maybe, I think, again, I've said this too many times probably, but just allow yourself to dream, to have fun together. And what are things that you really love to do? And I love to dance. And so maybe you could find some dance lessons. Or maybe you just commit to dancing in your kitchen once a week. That you can just set some goals that really support all the rest of these goals that allow you and your spouse to have lots of fun together, to enjoy each other and to laugh together and to surprise one another and just make some memories together, I think is helpful for me to have some good memories to hold on to. Last but not least, we have the future dreams. And this, I think, this category, one of the questions that the Weinerts have in here is what can we start doing now to move the dial on the dreams that we've made to make them a reality? And I think that's a really great, after you've gone through these categories, now what could we do today or tomorrow? How can we start? Because I know when I set a lot of big goals, sometimes I freeze. I get a little paralyzed. I don't know how to accomplish any of them.
Yeah, I think that's very common.
Yes. So I love the idea of just saying, okay, what are a couple things we could do today? And so maybe your goal is to go see those friends. So I'm just going to text them and see what their year looks like and see if there's a month maybe that looks more free. Let's just start there. Let's look at a month and see if we can start looking at some dates, see how much time off work we would have, see if it's soon, maybe we could start looking at flights, but let's just find a month. Just start small, reach out with the text. Maybe with prayer. My husband and I really like checklists. This year, when we went on our dream date, we broke them down into some daily tasks. And so when we complete those, we check them off and we can encourage each other and say, I see you weren't able to do that. How can I help you get that done today? And it's a visual goal. So that has worked for me. But what do you think, Katie, would be helpful for you and your husband?
I also like lists, and I think it's really good at the end of this dream date to be taking it down to the practical level like that. And I think, at least for me, it really helps for me to share my goals out loud so that I have to hold to them.
Yes.
So sometimes,
Yes.
Sometimes just making sure that I tell Matthew, I'm going to do this, and then he can check in with me. Oh, did you do that? Or checking in again regularly throughout the weeks and the months, I think would be.
Yes. Helpful. Yeah, I agree. I think I would encourage if you go on a dream date like this or whatever format yours looks like, I would really encourage listeners to at least check in once a month to find a time that my husband and I, we still try to, but with his schedule, it doesn't always work out as well as it did prior. But we started dating on the 16th of the month. And so we would try to go on a date around the 16th and just remember that. And so maybe there's a special day of the month, or maybe even something like maybe you don't really like Mondays. And so a way to look forward to Mondays is you have a date on Mondays, and finding ways to check in on these goals and to encourage taking the next step, and also reevaluating, because you might make a goal in January and you get to May and you need to pivot what those goals look like. And yeah, I think that's a great suggestion of checking in for sure.
Awesome. I'm so inspired. I need to go schedule my dream date now.
Yes. Well, listeners, we are going to wrap up this episode. We hope that there were at least a few ideas in this episode that give you some encouragement and maybe starting to get the gears turned in your own mind and heart about what you would like to dream about with your spouse. We'll have several resources linked for you in the show notes. But Katie, thanks so much for joining me and dreaming with me about what this could look like.
Oh, it's been so much fun. Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. Listeners, we are praying for you. And if you want a dream date, we would love to hear all about it. We want to know if this is something that's been helpful in your marriage. And we will see you next time. God bless. Thank you so much for joining us for this Springs in the Desert podcast episode. We would be so grateful if you took a minute to rate and review us so that we can reach more listeners. Don't forget to check out our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram, and go to our website, springsinthedesert.org, where you can sign up for our newsletter and community prayer list, read our blog, and register for virtual and in-person events. Most importantly, remember that God loves you so much, and so do we.